Gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Singles Connect community. It's another beautiful day in our community here. And today's episode is one that is both controversial but very interesting because as adults, whether you're young, middle aged, single, divorced, this topic is something that is very, very prevalent and everybody has something to say about it. Even the ones that are not doing anything about it have something to say about it. So, welcome to my co host, my beautiful co host, and my very handsome, dapper young man here. Please kindly introduce yourselves and let's get this conversation going.
My name is Akan. It's nice to be here
Hi
again.
guys, I'm
So
Stacy-Ann.
let's dive into this
Welcome back to the
conversation.
Singles Connect podcast, and we have an exciting show for you guys. So I guess let's just dive right into the topic. We're talking about sexual compatibility in a relationship. So the last episode we talked about the difference between abstinence and celibacy. So today, for we decided to kind of keep it uniform, the topics to make sure it's relatable, so we're not all over the place. So hopefully the way we're structuring things makes sense for you guys and you guys appreciate it as much as we do. So, sexual compatibility in a relationship. For me personally, I think it's important and I think it's a conversation that people need to have in the dating process so that way you understand each other's needs and wants so that no one feels like I got in way over my head because trust me, I have listened to tons of other podcasts, other people talk, and I've actually there's one particular podcast host, and I'm not going to call any name because if I start doing, people's going to know what I'm talking about. But anyways, he is divorced right now, and part of the main reason why he's divorced is because his ex-wife thought that he had an unhealthy sexual appetite, is what she called it, which to me is a little crazy, but I think the conversation is important because see, to him, maybe 3 times for the week is to him is not enough, and to her that's overdoing it. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that? But it is a conversation I think people need to have though, even if you didn't have you're not as maybe experienced as your partner, you still need to know what the expectation is of not just yourself but of your partner when it comes to that in a relationship. At least that's what I think it's a topic that needs to be discussed.
Absolutely. Oh my God. So, 3 times a week was too much for her?
Yes, he said that, and he quote, so I'm gonna quote him, that she said he had a unhealthy sexual appetite and also an unhealthy mindset when it comes to sex. And I thought that was a little harsh, just listening to, his story and him talk about the kind of the basis for his relation, the ending of his marriage, because he ended up having cheating on her, so they got divorced because of adultery. But the reason, part of the reason is, and even though they're great friends right now, he talks about it a lot. That's that they're very close together. They've grown over the years because it's been divorced a number of years now. But that was the main reason, is because he wasn't sexually satisfied. But instead of I guess the thing he expressed a lot is not having the proper language of how to communicate, what was happening in his needs and his wants. So instead of them coming together and coming to some type of solution, he ended up cheating on her. So that's what was caused the marriage to end. But I don't think 3 times a week for healthy people, active people, is too much. That's just my personal take on it. Unless you just don't like each other, which is why I think the whole liking each other and is important,
Yeah.
and being fond of each other, being affectionate, I think is very important. So I don't know, I just thought that was weird, like 3 times a week is seemed to be excessive. But again, to each his own. Maybe some people to be understanding and to be fair, and as I kind of like to say, create a safe community for everybody. Some people may have trauma behind their sexual experiences or things that may have happened to them in their life, and that could be part of the reason why some people um, don't enjoy it, or don't think there's a need for it, or just looking for companionship. I don't know. I think that's why people need to have these conversations.
Mm.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I can. I want you. I want to hear what Akan has to say about this. Then I'll go.
Yeah. I think the last thing Stacy said, which is, it's not just some people. Everyone needs to have this conversation. Um, this is a we have. Can we all agree that this is
Marriage
Are
actually a
you
is
referring
challenge?
to
especially
This
having
is a
the hard
challenge with
conversation, or are
relationships and
you talking
marriages,
about the expectations?
especially
sexual
yeah,
compatibility,
like
sexual frequency,
sexual the
sexless
frequency of
marriages
like
is a
when to
big
have sex.
problem. In fact, it's
It's
actually on the rise
a
now. Like
challenge.
so many marriages are now that
Yeah.
more people are speaking about it, more people are coming out to speak about it, and more women are being vocal. I mean, I've heard the weirdest things. Like my husband hasn't touched
Mhm.
me in 5 years. I'm like, what? Like, and you're still calling him my husband. Like, I'm sorry. Like, that title should be
Yeah.
snatched away. First of all, I don't even know why you're still saying my husband after that space of time. So it's crazy that, I mean, the thing that most people get in trouble for is now the thing when they get in marriage and relationships where they can have it freely. They don't want to do it anymore. What is happening? The world is going crazy, guys. I don't know.
Well, okay, Dr. OJ. All right. So I know that in every stage of a relationship, and marriages, things happen. You know, after childbirth, your body changes. You have kids that are pulling at you. You may not feel in the mood. You're breastfeeding.
Yeah.
Your boobs, your nipples, all of that is sore. You're tender, and you're probably tired and overwhelmed. I do get it that the different stages of marital life and have, or even if you're unmarried and you are co-partnering with somebody, you're cohabitating under the same roof, and you're doing life, having children and all of those things, you know, a lot of those things also put burden on people's sexual life. But I do think though but when it's just like a blatant thing of I just don't have a desire or a need for it, or I don't feel sexual or sexy for whatever reason. Some people, it's maybe not having kids, it's weight gain, hormonal changes, different things. So I think it's important for couples to talk about whatever it is that their body is going through and whatever stage of the relationship they're in when it comes to that. To me, to avoid infidelity, you know, in the case of the young man that I was telling you guys about, that's what caused his marriage to fall apart, because he then went outside of the marriage to satisfy the desires that he had sexually because they weren't being met in it within his marriage. And then he was made to feel, even though I'm sure that may not have been her intent, that there was something unhealthy about him.
So, so it's very, very important for us to clarify. Talking about sexual compatibility and also just looking at the situation where most couples find themselves where they suddenly have a sexless relationship. So it might, I mean, the lack of sex is not might not always be due to compatibility. It might just be a whole nother thing going on there. And the reason I say this is because for me, when I was married before I got divorced many, many years ago, for the most part of my marriage, I realized that I really wasn't that sexually attracted to my ex-husband, not through any fault of his, not that he was a it just was never there, even from the foundation. Again, no conversation was had about this. And couples come together under different circumstances, so I think that also played a role in just not um allowing me to be aware enough, or allowing us to have that awareness to have certain conversations. So that played out for a long time in our relationship, and it was just like, and I honestly believed, and I told myself, I'm just not a sexual person. I just don't like sex that much. So that was my own explanation for the lack of interest and the lack of attraction. So while we did not have a sexless marriage, but it wasn't something that I was an active I was an active participant. So I would not initiate it. I would not, it just wasn't my thing to do. Everybody had their thing to do in the marriage. That was just not my thing to do. That was just a thing to do, to procreate, which we have three beautiful children, and it was a thing to do when he wanted to do it. And if I, yeah, so that was it. So I don't know. We were not sexually compatible as far as I was concerned. But outside of the marriage, I found out that I'm not sexual. I just was not sexually compatible or attracted to my previous partner, and I've learned to be okay with it. And of course, moving through different seasons and stages of my life now, I'm in a season where I feel like I have a very healthy appetite, and it's okay, it's good, and yeah, it is what it is.
So, based on what you've said, Dr. OJ, um, do you feel like sex? And I'm asking this question to you and Stacy. Do you think sexual compatibility is important before you go into a committed relationship? That's the first question. The second one is, do you feel it's good for you to find out how sexually compatible you are? And the third one is sexual compatibility or sexual incompatibility a recipe for
Hmm.
like a recipe for
Okay.
So
a
Yeah,
breakup of a
Stacey, you
relationship?
go.
so for me, I think sexual compatibility is an important conversation to have.
How do you have a
I
conversation
can
about
speak
something
for
you're supposed to be
myself.
doing, Stacey? I'm just
What,
playing
Doctor?
devil's advocate. Just playing
Wait,
because
wait,
when
wait. Do I
somebody.
feel a little judgy going on here? Wait? What did she say exactly? Because I feel like I'm being judged over
No,
here.
you're not being judged. No, I'm saying what some of our viewers are gonna say. How do you have a conversation about
Oh,
something
well, I
you're
was
supposed to
just
be
about,
doing?
well, child, listen, calm down. I'm about to explain it.
She's getting
Okay,
there.
so for me, and I'm going to speak for just me, and the rest of you guys can chime in the Connect community and tell me how you guys handle this. Whenever I find myself in a relationship or even with somebody that I think I have an interest in and I want to see where this goes, there's a couple of conversation I think is key, not just about my core values and my non-negotiable and all of that and the deal breakers. That conversation is one of the conversation I have, and it usually goes something like this. When was the last time you engaged in any sexual activity with somebody? I like to ask that question because, and I will tell you why. If the person says maybe 6 months to a year, then it tells me you're somebody that has some standard and you're selective, so you don't sleep with everybody. That's what they're telling me. They tell me that you have a little bit of discipline, because if a man can go without sex for 6 months to a year, in my mind, it says a little bit something again about your discipline,
Yeah.
and also the fact that you're selective in the fact that you don't sleep with everything that move. So that's usually how I start the line of question. Then I move on to, when was the last time you have been tested? So, and after we navigate that part of the conversation, then I started asking, what are your desires and what are the things that if you have any fantasies, what are they? And I always preface it by saying there's no right or wrong answers here. There's no judgment. I just need to understand exactly what kind of creature you are, what you're into, to know if we match. Because there's a couple of things that I am not doing. I am a territorial woman. We're not having no threesomes. There's nobody bringing in no party in here. It's just me, you, and me and you until we decide to make somebody a third person to add to this at the appropriate time. So I need to know. So that's usually how I start my conversations, to find out what if we're sexually compatible. Because if you're going to tell me you have some crazy desires about threesomes and putting things in places where they have no business going in, then me and you is not going to get along. Because yes. So to answer the people's question and Dr. OJ's question, that is how I usually start the conversation when it comes to figuring out if we're sexually compatible, and what are you willing to do and not willing to do, and what are you willing to compromise on. Because I also think I have an open mind when it comes to certain things, but without putting all my business out there for everybody on there's certain things that this girl ain't doing, because I'm a germaphobe and we ain't doing that. So that's all I'm going to say about it. So I digress for now. I'll let somebody else go. We can't hear you, Dr. OJ. If you're saying something, you're muted.
Oh no, I'm not. I'm not muted.
Oh, now there you go.
I don't know why I'm I'm laughing so hard at your comments and everything, but it's just like it's so hilarious. But you were so right, and what you're saying is true. But I had to interject earlier, and I apologize because I'm like I'm sure someone is thinking talk about sexual compatibility. It's not a talking thing, it's a doing thing. But then the way you explained it, definitely there is a way to gain clarity to
Yeah,
mentally take note and see, oh, okay, I can get with that. Okay, I can get with that. And even just that initial assessment of when was the last time? And I honestly do ask that question too. That's why I started laughing from the beginning. Because I also asked that question like, when was the last time you were sexually active? Because I want to figure out again your level of discipline, and even if just to see, well, how serious this person is. And
hmm
are they just coming here for another smash and pass, as they say, or something
exactly.
like that? So
Yeah.
you really, those are really legit, valid questions. And I don't know, what was the last question, Akan, that you asked?
So the first one, like, should the conversation be had, and is
Mm-hmm.
sexual compatibility important before going
Yeah,
into relationship or a committed relationship? Before, remember, so basically you're being there. And then,
divorce
do you
or
think sexual
yeah,
incompatibility
So I think I
is a
answered your
recipe
first
for
the
and
first
second
disaster?
one.
question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think yes, you definitely need to have the conversation. As I said before, I typically ask the questions if you're somebody that I know and I think I want to see where this goes
Mhm.
before we commit to exclusivity and we are going to see where this goes. Those are my line of questions, how I go
Mhm.
about it. And then after that, if I decide that what you are offering is something I think I have the capacity to accommodate, whenever we decide to get to that stage of the relationship, then now I guess to answer the other part of your question, do I think it's uh, it's important? It is important because it lets you know, can you handle what this person is saying to you? Do you have the capacity to hold space for this person with their sexual needs and desires? You don't
Right.
want to then try to go into it and then you're like, oh, I didn't know, or
Yeah.
I have no interest in doing that, but you not guys never discussed it. So can this person then say, well, you know you're
Mhm.
fake or you're whatever it is, but no, you guys didn't have a conversation. You can't put expectation on someone if you guys never discussed it. You don't know what this person
Right.
limitations are. And it's, you can have this conversation too even when you're discussing health, like in a real in I think that even that is a conversation I tend to have, like, when was your last physical, like, is there anything that I need to know? I ask those questions. And people may think I'm crazy for asking these questions even in the courting stage, but I really don't want to get too far when I'm emotionally attached and everything is harder for me to walk away to be trying to ask the questions. And I think it's not a deal breaker if you guys actually talk about certain things. I guess to answer your last part of your question, because I also think that sex is something that can be improved. It is something that you can work on, but the conversation prior to how open minded are you to certain things will then tell you if the partner you have is open to say, I don't know everything, but I'm in love with you. I am willing to try this or try that, and we can work at it together and figure it out together.
Right.
Hopefully that answers our con question.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
can. I completely agree with everything Stacey has said. The only thing
Yeah.
I'm going to add on is just understanding that, when it comes to people making sexual compatibility a deal breaker, and I need to address that it wasn't a deal breaker for me in my marriage. So it wasn't like I mean, I had resigned myself to whatever the roles were. Like I said, everybody just assumed their roles, and we all played it really well, and it was okay. And it probably would have been okay if other things had been kosher and compatible between us. But now I feel like a lot of people, when it comes to sexual compatibility, we're very quick to want to seek out other options, especially people, maybe men and even women who have a very healthy sexual appetite. Because I'm not going to say it's unhealthy, because just because someone has high levels of hormones and things that really drive their sexual need, doesn't mean that there's something wrong with them. However, people have been found to be diagnosed with being nymphomaniacs, which means that is the heightened levels of lack of control. They have to have sex at pretty much very short intervals, like very unrealistic short intervals. So, except you, I mean, as long as you don't fall into that category, everyone has their own, the way their body is and stuff like that. It's important to be able to extend grace to your partner. And I think with this guy and the whoever the podcast guy is and his sexual issues, I I would assume that one of the things that pushed him out, that made him, maybe, I don't want to say made him, because nobody makes you do anything. You literally just do
Mm-hmm.
what you're susceptible to doing in the first place. So let's be clear about that. So regardless of how his wife maybe treated him or did not treat him, but I would say a lot of it would also be how she handled the situation, just making it seem like there was something wrong with him, and him needing to prove that there was nothing wrong with him, that he was perfectly okay. You know, the male ego. So going out there to find someone who could maybe match that energy was his own way of saying, well, look, if you can't handle this, someone else can. That's just that human pride. But then, yeah, sexual compatibility is very important. It's not a deal breaker for me, because if you do care about someone, it's beyond the sex, it's beyond what you do in those very few short moments. Everything else that happens in the relationship should hold more weight than just that one singular thing, even though it's one singular thing that is very, very important. But it might just be the thing that, and a partner who cares about you, the one who is not as good as the one that is so great, should be, would, I mean, they'll be willing to kind of either teach each other or learn from each other and make it better. And I have seen men who, or heard of men who would shame their female partners because they feel like, how are you so experienced and how do you know all of these things? And they would sort of slut shame the woman and make her feel bad for having certain experiences, I mean, whatever her journey has been. And so that also brings another conversation where, how do we make each other feel, and how does that factor into sexual compatibility?
Hmm. All said. Well, like I said, this issue of sexual compatibility is a big challenge in the community. In my own personal opinion, I think the reason is because it is usually underrated and swept a little bit under the rug at the beginning and at the start of meeting someone or the relationship. These conversations need to be had. You need to have literal conversations about this thing. Now, is there a challenge of people not being able to accept certain honesty? I was also watching a podcast today where it says no matter how much you bring with something, there's certain information you don't want to just divulge just because whether it's about your past, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when you say those things, people just don't see you the
Yeah.
same way you are. They just look at you differently, right? Even though it's in the past. But I believe that it's important to be able to have certain points need to be hit. It's not just about like it's just like what is your like someone's sexual level, your libido. How important is it to you? Sex is actually I believe sex is actually a huge determinant in a marriage, and I'm not looking at it from just saying sex. Intimacy is very important. And honestly, I do think lack of intimacy, and a sexual incompatibility is actually is a recipe for disaster in a relationship or in a marriage. It's easier for a marriage where there's no sexual compatibility, where the partners are not satisfied by their very special one, to break apart just because of how human beings are programmed. And it's something that I've also been researching more a lot. Now, that said, you still have to do work when you go in there. There's intentionality. And so when you have these conversations, I feel like you have to be able to agree, hey, listen, this is what I see. The same thing you said about men looking at their women, it's the same thing. It's happened to women as well. I've personally dated someone in the past where, I thought it was okay. I wanted to just let them know this is what I want. This is, what and they're just like, yo, like you're probably too experienced. And, for me, it was more, it was like, yeah, I'm just trying to tell you, this is how it is. It wasn't anything outrageous, but it was being honest. So I think it's a sensitive topic, but I think it's important to have conversations. Conversations need to be had, and honestly, there's something else I wanted to say where, like, talking about the guy who was divorced and with see, some people do not have the the durability or that power for that amount of sex, say 3 times a week. There's people that don't have it. So there's nothing wrong with your sexual levels or sexual tolerance or when you want to do, but you have to be able to let someone know. Like there's people who make you like, hey, listen, like I just don't even like indulging, and you
Mm-hmm.
just know that that person is not the person for you. It's important. I know there's care and there's all these things. It's important, but the reason why I say it's important is because I've come to find
Mm-hmm.
that sexual compatibility as well actually starts with attraction, right? Somebody might say I don't like sex. They don't like sex, or they don't because they have not met someone who they are attracted to in that level. Matter of fact, I was actually learning about attraction levels. There's 3 levels to attraction when it comes to women and men. There's the low level, the medium level, and the high level. So the people who get the low level of attraction, those are the ones where the woman is giving you an excuse. They're not trying to. When a woman meets a medium level, she's like, oh, yeah, should I? Should I? Maybe I should not. Maybe should I? But when a woman meets a man that she's highly attracted to, it's that level where her friends are telling her she's not listening. Like it's because it's there, and so it's like for me, and me, I'm all about education, but I'm finding out, and so basically this person could have hung out with somebody else, and they're like, oh, she was this type of person, but then you see her dating somebody else, and she's a totally different person. Same thing with the guy. So finding someone who you are attracted to is also very important, and people get attracted to different ways. I've talked to women who say, listen, I just want to jump on my husband whenever I see him, doing the house chores. Like he just gets me, like he just turns me on. So people, different things come through. So I think, like I said, it's still knowing who you are as a person, meeting someone, having the courage to have those conversations and seeing if this person's agreeable. But I think being agreeable, being able to adapt, being able to say, listen, I'm willing to work through on these things is important. Like me, if I mean like sexual intimacy is very important for me. If it's something that you cannot, if you feel like it's not, yeah, not for me, because I'm not going to go into the marriage and start negotiating. Yes, we can work certain things, but you have to understand this is because I don't want to go to
Exactly.
anyone else. I want everything inside under my roof and in my home, right? And I also want to be considerate. I also want to feel you, so I want to have this conversation with you. So basically, if there's a places where we can work on them, but it's just like not one of those things where how you start is also sometimes how you finish. Because if that person tells you, listen, I don't even like having this thing. Maybe I just want to do it once a month or whatever. Listen, there's gonna be issues there. So I just wanted to add that.
I think it's very
You know,
inconsiderate for
but
partners
I'll,
to
I'll
come
listen to you,
together,
ladies.
especially when you're legally married and able, and at least supposedly. And it's so funny that I hear a lot of my married friends talking about sexual problems, like not enough sex and no sex at all. And I'm like, really? Before marriage, sex is a taboo. We don't talk about it. Do you guys think that's one of the problems? Because even though now social media, pop culture, everything puts it in your face. I mean, like it puts it in your face, like all the women, the way women are dressing these days, and all that. But when it comes to the nitty gritty of relationships, sex is still a taboo to be talked about. If you guys, I mean, I don't know if you guys are, do you understand? So now, exactly. So
That's
people
what,
have
but
this
that's exactly what I'm
fantasy
saying.
of
It's a
what
challenge because yeah,
sexuality and intimacy is about when they watch all the movies and they see the music videos and they see on social media all the provocative dressing and lack of clothing and all that. But when it comes to their relationships, that's not the reality, you know. And another thing again is sometimes as partners we sort of, there's this thing we say in Nigeria,
okay,
see finish. We don't even make it easy for ourselves to, we might start out hot, partners might, couples might start out, and then everything kind of fizzles out because those little things that you do, like just even as little as just the hygiene of a woman and just being able to take care of herself and smell good all the time. Women, or we stop doing it and we're like, oh, that's my husband, it doesn't matter. No, it does matter. All those things matter. But you're like, well, he's still my husband. He's supposed to just stay here. No, he's a human being. You know, he might just be there for the sake of being your husband, but he just won't be attracted to you because he's not getting all of the things. And even the men do the same thing. So it's kind of like we've made it a taboo for people to discuss or engage in it, because we say, okay, yeah, we're people of faith, we know we don't want to engage in sex before marriage. Granted, but then we now get into the marriage and then we're trying to figure it out, and then the conversations are kind of going sideways, and we're doing things that don't even encourage the development and the growth of it. Like Akan was saying, yeah, I want to get everything under my roof. So now let me ask you this: as a man, yeah, you love your wife, you want to get everything under your roof, and then what happens as your partner stops making the effort to
Yeah.
offer you what it is that you want to get? What do you do? I mean, and they start out, so they start out doing
Once
it
again,
for a
which is
period
why I'm
of
saying
time.
this. Once again,
Okay.
once I'm going to explain once again, it's the conversation that we're talking about, and it's not just the conversation, it's the commitment. So this is the question: should sex be seen as something that should be done when you want to do it, or should sex be seen as a commitment to your partner? A commitment, which means there are times when you may not feel like you want to have sex, but you have to. The commitment with you being in a relationship is you're not only, you know that you have to have sex with your partner, so you actually prepare yourself to be able to have great intimacy and sex with your partner. I'll give you an instance. I was watching a video of a lady, and I'm going to send it to you on Instagram. And this is what she said. She's almost 60, and she is very in great shape and sexy. And this is what the comment on her video was saying. She said she believes that the greatest gift she can give to her husband is looking good for him and looking great for him. And in doing that, she has to love herself first. So even the days where she doesn't want to go to the gym, she gets up and she goes to the gym and she does those squats, she does all the stuff, because she feels like that is her way of letting her husband know that she loves him. And the same thing, I literally was having the same conversation, and I'm not even kidding you. I was like, yo, why are a lot of men walking around with pot bellies? I'm walking on mine. My belly is still, like, it's not easy. But see, that's the thing. So it's not just about you wanting sex. Are you even putting your body in a place where it requires great sex? Because here's the thing: if you're exercising properly, the body is going into a regenerative state. Cells are being shed, and they're built back again. It's making the body healthy. It needs healthy sex. You can't
Yes, it
even have
can.
healthy
Yeah.
sex if you're not healthy. Can we even have that conversation? So a man who is going to the gym, eating right, doing what he needs to do, his testosterone is being produced more, better. The level is rising. He's
Mhm.
doing less of the alcohol. This is part of the commitment that we are talking about. This
Yes.
is the deep conversation we're talking about, because you have a commitment to your wife. So you're gonna have to put those things down. And it's not even just your wife. The more you guys are happy, the more you're healthy. That
Mm-hmm.
commitment is to your wife. You have a healthy relationship. It also blesses your children, right? Same thing with the woman. We know this is a
Mm-hmm.
big problem. After a certain time, it's like, oh yeah, I just want to do this. No, but you have to get up and exercise. So it's not just that sexual libido. Sometimes, let's
Yes.
say for what it is. Are we lazy? Are people lazy to have sex? So seeing this thing as a commitment is important. When you go into marriage, it's not just about working, making money. Your commitment is to, in my commitment, me, my wife, I want to satisfy you till you beg me and say, please, the satisfaction is too much. That is my goal. I have to do it, has to happen, because yeah, because that, so that
Mm-hmm.
when you travel and go on your job trips, and you'll be thinking about me, like the satisfaction, that is what it should be. So, and so it's still part of what we say, out serving each other. You are serving in giving, you are serving in love, you are serving in grace, but you also are serving in intimacy, thinking of the person's needs. I think it, and I've always been it. When I meet someone, if I'm in a relationship, I'm, I don't want you to tell me what you like. Just let me know that you like intimacy. I'm gonna find all those spots that you need, and I'm gonna start working on them. But that
It
is
doesn't
what it's
sound
about. I know
cheesy.
it sounds a little cheesy,
Announcement.
whatever, but that's it.
Husband
So
material.
maybe the
20
about
yards.
so it's the commitment of it, but it still goes back to this thing where when it comes to relationships and stuff, we just think that processes should fix themselves. Somebody that loves you, it's work. It's worth getting to know what your partner likes. It's worth getting to know. The only thing I tell people is, listen, when you meet someone, can I wake up to this face in the morning every day of my life? I want to wake up to your face. Once that question is answered, can I work with this person? Every other thing now you need to work with. You need to put, you need to go on, like, go research. How can I increase my sexual appetite for my? It's there. You do these things. Yeah, because it's the same way. Because there's a time, I know that there's just different things. I think sometimes we overlook these things as human beings. I've had times when I was having hard breathing. I researched. I started doing the things that I knew was the food I was eating. I changed it. My belly went down. That hard breathing stopped. So there's a lot of things, and so one of the things I tell people is, like, I know there's stuff, but have you done the things that are free? Like, can we have the conversation that you've done the things that are free in life that God has given, and you don't have results from those things? Do you stand up every day and walk? That your body, as a woman or as a man, and have you done all these things? You're breathing this air. Have you purified your environments? Let's leave the doctors. Let's leave the complex things. I know when people get sick, and then get to these other conversations. So I think this is part of the conversation, but I don't want to go too
Akan, you've
far.
gone far.
I
Stay.
just wanted to
You know
let you
what
guys
we're
know
gonna
about
do?
that.
We need to
These
actually
are
start auctioning off. Akan, you and I can make money. Husband material, 20 years for sale. Please come and buy. I am. But seriously, yeah. Really important. Like, it's really good conversation to have, because I strongly believe that, look, sexual compatibility is very, very important, and it's right there at the top with financial compatibility, the security you provide, and everything. But it's also not a deal breaker, because I feel like if I care about you enough as a human being, as a person, we can work around the other issues around sex and all that. Yeah, we want to have great sex, we want to do that, but just factoring in the person is more important. That, I mean, there are people that I've been attracted to, but they're not really good human beings. Like, do you understand? Beyond the sex, you really don't want to keep them around, and that's really unfortunate. So while that's important, it's not the only thing. It's not a deal breaker. And just like Stacy said, I love the fact that, yeah.
Can I object, Logic? Can I object to you a little bit? It
Oh
is a
yeah. I
deal.
think
It
for
is
me,
a
yeah,
deal
for me, it's
breaker
not
for
a
some
deal breaker.
people, and it's not a deal breaker. Now, it's not a deal breaker. It's also not a deal breaker for some people because they don't understand that it is actually a deal breaker. This is why education is important. Because I have also talked to people where, if I've actually talked to women and say, if he can't satisfy me, I'm not marrying him. And the evidence is
Yes, it
showing
is.
that sexual compatibility is breaking marriages. Sexual compatibility. So that means it is a deal breaker. Now, one of the issues we have is that some people are not educated enough. And this is why I keep saying, like, you have to educate yourself. Like, you have to work on yourself, because it's not an excuse for this thing. It is a deal breaker, but it might not be for some people. And those people who even say they are deal breakers, we've seen cases where they've suppressed it. And then down the line, it opens up and it's a problem. Some people who say it's not a deal breaker have other coping mechanisms that are unaware to their partners. And it's going on, and you think is that I've seen different things happen in marriages. I've seen marriages that have come up, and if everybody thought things were good, and we
I know
go and
what
we
you
find
mean.
out
I
this
know
was
what you
going on,
mean.
but it looked very
Yeah.
nice outside. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying. It can be a deal breaker. It can. So maybe we need to come back to that conversation and see. And then there's some people who, like, it's not a deal breaker for them, and I'm not even talking about, like, especially if we look back in our parents' time, because other things sort of overshadowed this, the approval of community, societal perception. But a lot of women were suffering, and I said this because I feel like back in the day, the men had more freedom and more flexibility to do things with different women, but the women sort of couldn't. So women were, really suffering through these things. So it wasn't a deal breaker with them, not because they didn't have that freedom, or they didn't have that, like, they didn't have that I'll say freedom to step out of the marriage, or to even have a voice for this thing. So, but now, it's more modern. We have more conversations, people. But
a couple of things.
I think it's very, very
because
important.
while you and Dr. OJ was talking, my mind was running a million miles an hour. So a couple of things. I agree with Akan that it is a deal breaker for some people, because if you're gonna have to look outside of your spouse or relationship, because we have to remember that the, we're although we are all Christian people here, we believe in the Christian values. We are still catering to our singles commit community. Not everyone share the same values that we have. That are they're waiting for their spouse or husband or whatever it is before they engage in sexual activities. So just to make sure that we're covering the bases for everybody, for the people who choose to engage prior to marriage, the conversations are important, and it's a deal breaker as a concept. I strongly agree for some people, because I would prefer to see people in healthy monogamous relationship than to you're with somebody and you're not satisfied. You guys didn't have the conversation where expectation are concerned, so you're then stepping out on this person, or you're doing things, as he said, on the side, which it could be you find yourself addicted to porn, you find yourself addicted to self-pleasuring, which is the other term for that is masturbation, and all of those type of things. So you don't look within your partner for to meet your sexual appetite. And as I said before, there's ways to have these conversations prior to committing to this person or the relationship. It can simply start out as you talking about your health. When was the last time you went to get your physical? How do you feel? What are the things you want to change about yourself, your body? And then it can lead into the other topics of, we don't need, I personally, I don't need to know body counts. Whatever you did prior to me, I don't care. What you do while you're with me, now that's what I care about. I don't need to know when, who, or where. I just need to know what you like, what you want to do, and what we're not doing. That's all. And who we're doing it with. That's the only criteria and holes I need to fill. That to make sure if we're doing this, it's just me and you and nobody else, and nobody else is invited in the party. But so, and then I can't talk about, you brought up the topic about back in the day, women were suffering. A lot of women were suffering. They didn't have a voice, and most of the time back then, sex was not seen as a pleasurable thing. It was mainly seen for procreation. So women didn't even understand what it means to talk about even having pleasure when it comes to sex. That was far from their mind. All they saw it as, and all they thought it was supposed to be, was just to make babies. So you enjoying it or think that you need to satisfy your sexual appetite or whatever the case, that those things I don't even think cross their mind. But I will tell you some staggering statistics. Like right now, you have women that has been having sex, let's say from the age of 30 to 40, has never had an orgasm. And again, it comes down to, as I said, because why the conversation is important to have. What is your view on sex? How do you see it? What does sex means to you? And that all goes into also the intimacy part of it, because it's not just sex and intimacy are two different things. Intimacy for me is vulnerable and transparent conversation that comes with honesty, where I don't feel like I have to be Nancy Drew in order to figure out what's going on in your head. You volunteer the information to me, where to the point sometimes I may think you're oversharing, but I'm a different kind of woman. Those things turn me on. I don't know what turn you on. As you said, for some women, it could see you hanging the painting on the wall, changing the light bulb. You want to pounce in some, whatever it is that works for you. It works for you. I'm just saying that it is important to talk about, and you can have the conversation. It doesn't matter what type of relationship you have. It's just about knowing how to approach a topic and having that open, healthy conversation without judgment. And if the person is not for you in that category, they're just not for you. Because like Akan said, I know women that has broken up with men because, or lost interest in the dating process because they were left unsatisfied, and they felt like the man was just there for their pleasure and your pleasure was not important at all. So you have to also have a partner that is open-minded to not just his own pleasure, but your own pleasure, like what it is that you like, what pleases you, and don't let the ego get in the way. If she says, well, I didn't like that, but I like this. Can we try this? Can we try that? Just take the egos and the pride and all of that out of it, and just be there to serve each other. So that's all some of the things that were going through my mind. But I think we can talk about this topic forever and forever.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially because now in our society, adultery and fornication have become more popular than actual legitimate sex, right? So the people that are supposed to be having the sex, they're not having the sex, and the ones that are not supposed to seem to be having a wild time with it. And I'm wondering if the roles were reversed, those people who are engaging in all of those situations would
Right.
actually be enjoying the sex, which is very weird because I'm like, if the married people are not having sex and the ones that are not married are the ones that are having the sex, I mean, so when the ones that are not married get married, do they still keep enjoying the sex or do they now go into the married people's sexual state, which is not having sex? It's a very
I don't even know that the married people go into the not having sex.
The problem
As I
is
think I
the problem
alluded to
is
before when we
Mhm.
first started, that I think marriages go through different stages. It
Mhm.
can be, when you start having kids, I think sometimes it's harder for you to feel sexual when your body's going through all these different hormonal changes. You're up all night, you're exhausted with a baby and all of that stuff. Not that you neglect your husband, but I do know that, because I have married friends that have kids, that those are probably the time when they go through the most difficult part of, okay, I gain weight, I don't feel so sexy, I don't, I'm, ripping and running. I've been with the baby all day. I'm now cooking. I'm doing laundry. There's a million things. Life is happening where you don't feel so sexual. But that's some women though, because then you also have the women too that go through the postpartum depression and all of that stuff. And then you have the females that having the baby did something to their hormones and all they want to do is lay up. Because right after baby number one, 9 months later is
You're
baby number
like baby
two,
number two.
baby number three. So I think it has to do with individuality and how you navigate um, those different spaces in the relationship. And some of it can be to medical issues. But I think what is important is for the couple to have created a space before, whether it's in the dating period of being friends, talking to each other, so you're able to have the conversation while those things are happening. Because where you don't want to lose each other is in the gaps. That's where I think the chaos happens. When that gap is there, because it festers and
Mhm.
you guys hold resentment against each other because you guys are not talking, you're not communicating, you don't feel safe saying, hey, I don't want to do this right now, or this hurts right now, or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. Because you know some husband can't wait for the 6 week for the doctor to sign off the little 6 weeks after the baby for us to be able to do it again. They've been waiting. So I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm probably over talking, but I'm just
But Stacey, I want to pick something you just said.
yeah.
You said having the conversation while this is happening, right? While these things are can we
Before
also
they
Yeah, that's
start.
what
talk
I'm
about the
saying.
fact that
If you created
it's
a
good to
safe
have the
space
conversations before those things
before,
happen?
while you guys were dating, when the friends, the intimacy. So when things starts
So,
to
like,
break
I would
down or
want my
change
woman
in the
to ask me,
relationship, because you set that foundation before, you
uh-huh,
can then say, baby, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that, I know maybe last night wasn't that
yeah,
great, or I feel like you may sense that I wasn't there because I really wasn't. This is going on, that is going on. That's what I mean.
It's that open line of communication. I think all of this
Yeah.
boils down to just being with a partner who you're very comfortable with talking to and you know that you're safe and you guys can have open, honest, very vulnerable conversations. And it starts with the little things. And of course, bringing sex into it should not complicate it further because just like we're talking about our finances, we should be able to talk about our sexual life. And we should be able to talk about the things that we like and the things that we do not like and come to an agreement or a center point where everyone is comfortable with what each person likes. Because we have to also understand that people are coming with their history and their baggages and their backgrounds. And sometimes someone's sexual proclivities might seem a bit extreme to you. And it's okay for them to be able to express it and then have a discussion about it. Where most people make a mistake is like once someone tells them, oh, this is what I like or what I'm into or what I might be interested in, we tend to, our human nature automatically goes into that, no, like, no, we're not doing that. Or no, you just automatically, and we don't realize, especially for men,
Judgment.
I have found it shuts them off and down. Like they feel like, okay, well, if I told her this one thing and see the way she's responding, then I don't want to tell her any other thing because I don't want her to make me feel this kind of way. And they would keep those feelings suppressed. And maybe one day they run into someone, not because
Yeah.
they're looking, that might have that similarities with them, and that's a temptation in itself. So if you're with someone, I think we all owe it to our partners that we choose, because we get to choose these people. They're not thrust on us, right? So we all owe it to our partners that we choose as we round up today, to be able to openly communicate with them what we do like, what we do want, and what we don't, or whatever, and be open to accepting and just allowing people to be themselves. While you might not agree with everything they're bringing to the table, finding the best way to communicate that is also a good thing, because it helps people feel safe. They don't feel bad, down, and out about themselves. Because, sex for everyone looks differently. That's what I've learned. It looks differently. There's some men that will tell you going down on a woman is a no no for them. And there's some that would make it look like it's even a sin, even. You know what I'm saying? And there's some that's like it's normal, and every something is normal, and you're like, why is that? It's
Right.
extreme. I don't know, man. It's just crazy. Find your own person. God send us our own people, because when you find your own person, because that's the only way, though, to think about it. When you find your own person, you can never ever say the wrong thing to the right person.
That's true. I believe that. I think maturity helps, though. Having a mature mindset and a mature perspective, and having emotional intelligence. Because I think when you're emotionally intelligent, then you're able to have any type of conversations
Mm-hmm.
with anyone, and you're able to put aside your own feelings and your own judgment about something, and
Mm-hmm.
hold space for how that person perceive life, how that person thinks, without you
Mm.
projecting your own feelings and your own morals and values onto that person. And just say, okay, I can accept that. I understand.
Yeah.
This is maybe a little bit too much for me, but I completely respect your perspective and
Exactly.
appreciate
Yeah.
your honesty, and thank you
Right.
for
Absolutely.
sharing. But I'm going to step away from this, because
Mm-hmm.
this is a little bit for too much for what I have the capacity for.
Yeah.
So I think that when you have that maturity and that emotional
Mm.
intelligence about you, and that self-awareness and all of these skills, none of us come here knowing all of this. It's things
Yes.
that you have to develop. It's things that is
Yeah.
you can learn. And if you're a person that is teachable and open, you can learn all of these skill sets and decide what is for you and what is not for you. So we don't leave people feeling slighted, people feeling shamed, or
Mm.
demeanored, or anything like that about who they are at this point in their life, because we all grow, we all evolve. And I personally have learned not to pigeonhole people. I think that's also one of the problems. We tend to pigeonhole people to one thing, and we don't allow people to grow outside of the thing that we know of them, which, because we all grow every day.
Yes. Absolutely. I've enjoyed today's topic. I've enjoyed it. It's
Mm.
great. I'm just looking for. No, no, no. It's great.
And I just want to say, sorry to cut you, Dr. I just want to put a closing thought. I just want to say communication is important. Have communications with who you meet when you get to meet them, honest conversations about this. And your level of communication, like Stacy mentioned,
Yeah.
self-awareness, you can only find out so much when you actually do know yourself. So put in a lot of work to knowing yourself. I always say, knowledge is, you have to find knowledge as if your life depends on it, because it really does. And the first knowledge about the first person you want to find out is about yourself. That helps you more, and that's where the maturity Stacy talked about, with emotional intelligence is there. Number two, I think people should marry or date for the right reasons. I've also seen scenarios where people went into these situations, commitment because of a certain reason. You get in there because you went in there for that reason. Now you find out there's another thing that you're lacking, and now you can't get it from the spouse because you agreed to this thing, and now you're outside looking for it for something else. So I think it's important for people to with that, which is why I say, like, the qualities you want are there, but please make sure there's attraction, because this is somebody you're going to grow old with. And we are all going to grow old. So it's not like you're always going to look young or whatever. But, attracted to them, their character, their values, inside their soul, all of that is important. And there's a lot of stuff, there's other things that we can talk about, but I think you ladies have already covered it. So I
Thank you,
just wanted to
Akan.
add that.
Guys, I'm still
there.
putting Akan up for sale. Husband 20 yards material if y'all interested.
Oh, that
I
is
need to make
funny.
some money. I'm gonna make some money off his husbandliness.
I love this small.
All
That's
right, y'all. Thank
hilarious.
you for joining us this week in Singles Connect Community. It's been a great conversation once again. And we will be back with another brilliant episode next week with my beautiful and handsome co-hosts. Thank you, guys. Stacy, again, been a lovely time. Until next time, guys, enjoy your lives, enjoy your relationships. And like we said, keep communicating with yourselves because that's what it's all about.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. It's
Bye,
been nice
everyone.
with you this again. See you next time.